And we're going live. Aha, we're live, folks. Hello there. Sorry about that. Wee. Nanny apologies. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. We've got green sound machine. It looks like I've got picture. So sorry, I was just cutting it a bit fine there. Just trying to get myself organized as always. So I will say hello. It's 10 o'clock, folks. Thank you very much for joining me as always. My name's Doc Sloan. Welcome to the Doghouse. Our science fiction station, and tonight we're doing chapter 58 of Children of Dune book club. So we're pushing towards the end. Let me just see. Sorry, I need a couple of things to get tidied up here. Pens and books and stuff. And yeah, I'll probably have to apologize to my audience, actually, to be honest with you. I put a couple of things in there, extras. The other week, I had an extra episode. I should probably just keep it to try and keep it things regular. But I ended up reading from Lord Raglan's The Hero. And wow, I suppose my memory of it's not that great, but what is now. I've read it again recently, but I don't remember it being that bad, to be honest with you. It's a book I've had since, in my teenage days. And I found myself very, very bored. But actually, some of the things that we read from it are actually relevant to this chapter tonight. But I hope I didn't put too many people off with that. And if you haven't tuned in for last week's episode, the second of which, chapter 57, I'd stop after page 50 or 50 minutes because I don't know, it's pretty weird stuff. And listening to it, it's actually incredible how stupid his ideas are. And it's incredible that how much that they were accepted, I suppose. But the weird thing for us, looking at Frank Herbert's Dune universe, is a lot of his ideas on the hero come from Lord Raglan's The Hero, unfortunately. But you heard all sorts of, in very much terms of British Empire within his writing, and he's very, very wrong. So the reason why we just sort of decided to do that was pretty much we checked. It's not on Gutenberg or anything like that, Project Gutenberg. So it is a reasonably difficult book to access, Oh, bear with me a second. Now, let me see. Are we okay? I need to open a window here. And the other thing, just very quickly, that I thought we would have a quick look at tonight, just in relation to what we were talking about. I suppose in our previous chapter was energy, and I didn't do too well in the sciences at school. I did okay in biology, but what I thought, just to clarify, because we're talking about closed systems and energy, etc. Let's just have a wee quick look. I just thought very quickly we could read, in terms of defining this kind of thing, what Wikipedia has to say. So energy, from the ancient Greek energeia, which means activity, is the quantitative property that is transferred to a body or to a physical system, recognizable in the performance of work in the form of heat and light. Energy is a conserved quantity. The law of conservation of energy states that energy can be converted in form, but not created or destroyed. The unit of measurement for energy is the International System of Units, SI, is the joule, J. Forms of energy include kinetic energy of a moving object, the potential energy stored by an object, for instance, due to its position in a field, the elastic energy stored in a solid object, chemical energy associated with chemical reactions, the radiant energy carried by electromagnetic radiation, the internal energy contained within a thermodynamic system, and rest energy associated with an object's rest. They are not mutually exclusive. All living organisms constantly take in and release energy. The Earth's climate and ecosystems processes are driven primarily by radiant energy from the sun. Which is something that Paul Biglow-Sears goes on. So if we're not too sure about this, and I thought I need to have a wee brush up on this, Wikipedia is pretty good for this kind of thing, just different types of energy, etc. And the history of all that, going all the way back to the ancient Greeks, etc., etc. So there we go. Oh, that was, oops, I nearly lost you there, folks. Hang on a second. Hit the wrong button. There's Cynthia saying hi Doc and hi all, and there's Chaya saying shalom all. Hello Cynthia and hello Chaya, good to see you folks. Shalom, right back at you, Chai. Always not sure if that's the right thing to say or not, but it's good to see you both. Thank you very much for joining us. It's an interesting little chapter tonight. 50 at 5.5 pages. As I said, the next one's going to be 8.5, a bit more meat to it. And then let's see. Just in terms of, we've got a short one and then we've got a very big one, but we've 6 to go basically. And we're at the end of the book, and I have to apologize, as I said, everybody. I'm kind of chomping at the bit to get to the end, and I'm still not reading ahead. If you see, I just but the part of me is, well, let's get 2 episodes, let's get 3 episodes done this week, and I don't want to rush it. Which is often tempting, I think, at this point of the book, where you just want to drive on and get to the end, you know. So there we go. Now, all I've got to do is find, there you are, a paperweight. And I was looking for a wee quick cloth to clean my glasses. My office is an absolute shit pit. You'll have to excuse me at the moment, folks. I have no idea what I'll do with it. Hopefully they're not too bad. We'll not worry about it. Right. Anyway, it's good to see you folks, as always. We're just quickly, by the way, we're activating a membership thing on the channel as well. It's not going to interfere with the book club or anything like that. I'm going to keep that open, but it's a thing that YouTube are kind of pushing towards, so I'm going to do it. And Cynthia, as yourself, by the way, thank you very much for the support with Patreon. It's been much appreciated. But I think I'm going to shut that down. I've been trying to do lots of different things and not getting any of them done. And I think the best thing for me to do is concentrate on the station. So rather than try and do that kind of thing, well, I'm going to see if we can offer a few things. And I'll be open to suggestions as to what I can offer members, subscribers, and people who just pop in. And my bother with it is I don't really want to segregate my audience in any shape or form. So I think everything will be available to everybody, but we'll maybe just make members videos or something like that available a day early or something. I'm not too sure. It's not something I particularly want to do, but we'll have a go at it anyway. We've hit our 2,900th subscriber today. So thank you very much, whoever you are. And we're 100 more and we'll have 3,000. Isn't that an interesting thing? Which is very, very good. So they said, let me know when you're leaving, Paige, and I'll cancel support. That's exactly what. But thank you very much, Cynthia. I really do appreciate it. Do let us know how we can continue to support your channel. I don't like doing anything that goes after money, to be honest with you. Subscribers, and I always hope that the revenue from some of the adverts would do. But it really doesn't, to be honest with you, Cynthia. But no, much appreciated, Cynthia. Cynthia, you go ahead and cancel that right now, if you don't mind. And as I said, I'll probably shut it down this weekend. Actually, it's just too many. It's just me here, unfortunately, and it's just too many things to try and manage, But it's much appreciated. Thank you very much. As is everything, Now let's have a wee look. Not too long a chapter. We'll probably get through this one quite quick. I've called this Ghanima and the Desert Demon. But let's kick off, folks. And as I said, as always, folks, if anybody's got any questions or comments or just wants to throw something out there, fire away. I'm happy to answer any questions at all. So here we are, epigraph number 58. By these acts, Leto II removed himself from the evolutionary succession. He did it with a deliberate cutting action, saying, to be independent is to be removed. Both twins saw beyond the needs of memory as a measuring process, that is, a way of determining their distance from their human origins. But it was left to Leto to do the audacious thing, recognizing that as a real creator, I'll read that again, sorry. Recognizing that a real creation is independent of its creator. He refused to reenact the evolutionary sequence, saying, that too takes me farther and farther from humanity. He saw the implications in this, that there can be no truly closed systems in life. And that's from the Holy Metamorphosis by Hark al-Ada. And we have that word, metamorphosis. a holy metamorphosis, by the way. This is relating to Leto's transformation, which we still haven't seen fully yet. Interestingly, I suppose, to be a deliberate cutting action. That's the attitude of the knife, isn't it? To cut something off and say it is done. That's very, very Fremen thinking, I thought, first of all. To be independent is to be removed. I agree with that. I'm an independent educator. I'm completely removed from the system, from the education, the formal education system in this country. Both twins, by the way, this is about, saw beyond the needs of memory as a measuring process. Now, for any of you who managed to not be bored to tears last week by me reading Buer Agarves, the hero, whatever I've done with it, there we go. By the gods, he was talking a lot about this in this first chapter. Goodness, it's funny how you read things differently at different ages, isn't it? So memory as a measuring process is one of the things that Raglan talks about. It's a way of determining their distance from their human origins. So it's often memory is often unreliable, I suppose. But it's left to Leto to do the audacious thing, recognizing that a real creation is independent of its creator. He refused to reenact the evolutionary sequence, saying that too takes me further and further from humanity. He saw the implications in this, that there can be no truly closed systems in life. So the implication, I suppose, it's an attempt to remove himself, he says, from the evolutionary succession. And in the sense that he does, to be independent is to be removed, because he'll not pass on his genes. And in that sense, he's not going to contribute in that way to the evolutionary succession, if you like, of the human race. He does it the real thing, recognizing that a real creation is independent of its creator. And that's the little bit that's got me wondering there. And because I think he's talking in a sense about himself, in a way, that what Leto II has become is a creation, if you like, and it's independent of its creator, that he's a product, ultimately, I think, of the Bene Gesserit breeding program. But ultimately, in relation to what we're saying here, it takes him further and further from humanity, but he's not completely removed. So the implications in this are that there can be no truly closed systems in life. Now, closed systems. Let's have a wee look. Because we're getting into closed systems. So here we go. I'm a systems engineer, amongst other things. So we talk a wee bit about this sort of stuff before. A closed system is a natural physical system that does not allow transfer of matter in or out of the system. Although in the context of physics, chemistry, engineering, etc., the transfer of energy, for example, as work or heat, is allowed. So there we have classical mechanics, thermodynamics, if you want to have a wee look at closed systems. What's this one? Here we go. Thermodynamics, a closed system can exchange energy as heat or work, but not matter. With its surroundings, an isolated system cannot exchange any heat, work, or matter with the surroundings, while an open system can exchange energy and matter. Blah, 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 blah. Now, have we got anything else? Quantum physics? Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff there. But if we go into systems theory, closed systems, open systems, it gets a little bit complicated. But Frank's not correct, I don't think, here. And in some cases, the idea of systems, it gets to a point where it gets a little bit philosophical, because I suppose because we don't fully understand the entire nature of the universe, but it's quite possible that the universe itself is a closed system. There we go. So they say it may not be an exact comparison, but I'm reminded of Gödel's theorem that there is no mathematical system that contains all its own foundational theorems. Is there something? Oh goodness, as well. Let me see. Is it Russell's? Why does my name pop in there? It's nothing to do with me, of course. I'm thinking of someone called Russell. There we go. Axiomatic system. Okay, what's this? What's the AI? I don't like that. I'm not sorry. I don't trust the AI reviews on information since I've found quite a bunch of flaws in them. Gödel's completeness theorem is a fundamental theorem in mathematical logic that establishes that corresponds between semantic truth and syntactic provability. Provability is in first order logic. Consequences. Kurt Gödel. First proved by Kurt Gödel, 1929. Simplified by Leon Hankin, observed in his PhD thesis that the hard part of the proof can be presented as the modal existence theorem published in 1949. Hankin's proof is simplified by Gisbert Hassinger in 1953. Hang on, have I jumped? Gödel's completeness theorem. Okay, as a sense of the same way, every model T. Sorry, I gotta stop mumbling when I read this stuff. As a model of this first order proofs using the statements T is axiom. Something says this is anything true in all models is provable. Is that the one we're after, Cynthia? Saying that there's no mathematical system that contains all of its own foundational theorems. Yeah, isn't there something about set theory as well? It's something similar. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. To be honest with you, hang on, is that what I'm thinking on? Russell's paradox. Set theoretic paradox published by Bertrand Russell in 1901 shows that every set theory that contains an unrestricted comprehension principle leads to contradictions. No, that's not what I was thinking, is it? Not quite what I was thinking on either, is it? Yeah, something to do with set theory that might be heads away with it today. Yeah, well, it contains all its own fundamentals. No such thing. There can be no truly closed systems in life. This is the Holy Metamorphosis by Hark al-Ada. So this is by Faradin. And it's an absolute, isn't it? In life is what it refers to. So we've got three things really from that little epigraph. First of all, I suppose the attitude of the knife, that Fremen idea, is there. He did it with a deliberate cutting action, saying to be independent is to be removed. We've got the idea of memory as a measuring process for history, which is pretty much the main topic of discussion of Lord Raglan's first chapter of the hero, and also that there's no closed systems. So there we go. That's our epigraph. And so we have about 5.5 pages with this chapter, so it probably will go quickly. It's one of those. It's a little bit introspective. We get a viewpoint, if you like, from Ghanima of what's happening to the planet, and we also get within this chapter a sense of time going back. That regardless of where we started the story with Ghanima and Leto being 9 years of age, at this point we've had at least 11 months, we'll find out, go by, which makes the twins at least 10 at this point. So that's just something I thought I would point out. It doesn't really make much of a difference in terms of their ages, but the twins are in double figures at least. Right. Okay. Arrakis. Isn't there a Aleph subset 0, a set that contains all other sub? That's the kind of thing I was thinking on. Aleph subset 0 alpha. Yeah. And I think it's really, if system-wise, for example, are sets that ultimately, if you consider the universe as one thing, then everything within it is a subset of itself, really, isn't it? And it contains all the other sets, this kind of thing. And I don't know, again, I'm no physicist or astrophysicist or anything. I'm interested in astronomy and cosmology and all that kind of stuff. The information, I suppose, the stuff that we're getting from the James Webb Telescope at the minute and other kind of things like it, is really making us think a lot about, I suppose, the origins of the universe and the nature of it and its age. Seems to have quite a lot of implications for all of our thinking up until now. And who's to say that this universe isn't one of many universes within a super universe or this kind of thing? It's kind of all up in the air, I think, at the minute. It's interesting because I think we've had particularly a lot of those kind of scientists. I think we often see them speak with a lot of certainty. They'll tell you what we know, and it's actually what they don't know, to be honest with you. It's interesting to see it all opened up again, though, I think. People in history are often proved wrong, I think, as well. No matter how smart you are, you can pick any one person out of history. Well, we can show you all the things that they got right and what a fantastic individual they are, but they're human beings and they tend to get quite a lot wrong as well, regardless of who they are. One of the things that just before we get going, we were talking the other week about the mythology of not the other week, so it was just in relation to Lord Raglan's ideas and how rubbish they are. Is that essentially what he's saying? Is that for a myth to exist, there first has to be a ritual. And and then the story comes after that. So and it's bonkers if you think about it. And the thing that I thought was interesting was I applied it to someone who I know from the 20th century, and possibly the 21st century, who I know has been mythologized, and I know enough about them to sort of run her through Raglan's ideas. And the person I thought of, I'm just checking to see when she died. The person I thought was Rosa Parks, born 4th of February 1913, died 24th of October 2005. And a long time ago, I whenever it must have been around when she passed away, I think, but I remember reading. What would you call it? Is it the American Library of Congress kind of has a kind of thing put into it that there was a statement created, a historical piece of writing for her about her importance, and it did mythologize her in many ways. But the point, I suppose, was that the rituals that came into that doing these kind of things came after the events, and also how much that they've been manipulated and changed from the reality, if you like. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I don't know. You could argue it in a way that the ritual, if it precedes the story, is the ritual that keeps her off the bus, if you like, from sitting down. But I would argue that the process of mythologizing her, the ritual of it, comes from enshrining her into the Library of Congress. Rosa Parks is always a very interesting character to me. I was told a story about her when I was a little kid. Which made her seem much more impressive. Not that she wasn't impressive, but the story that I was told was that she was a little old lady, if you see what I mean, that stood up to these scumbags. not a healthy young woman, I suppose, but the fact that she was a little old lady made her much more impressive. I eventually learned out that's kind of part of the mythologizing of a person in a way. Wasn't quite true. Parts of the story were true, but she wasn't a little old lady. And there's quite a lot to that story. But it's an example of, I think it's Rosa Parks is a perfect example of demonstrating that Lord Raglan's theories are utter nonsense. And yeah, as I said, it was a bit. It's interesting reading people like that. As I said, a bit of the whole British Empire, very much about him, So just wanted to point that out because that's just at the end of the previous chapter. So here we go. This is a very ecological chapter. We're getting a lot of clues about the changes and processes that are happening here, mainly because of Leto II's guerrilla activities. The universe is a closed set, Chaya says, ignores, denies the spiritual that sustains the physical universe. I said, we don't know enough about it, Chaya, to be honest with you, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that we ignore. But yeah, you've still got to run. I still think you always have to run that into the equation, though, Chaya. Is like, where did this come from? Was it made? And if so, by who or what? They're big parts of the, yeah. But Chaya, not if you have a divided God. If you like, which a lot of cultures have, the idea that if you're omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, life must be pretty dull. That you would divide yourself, split yourself apart and not know yourself to make life interesting is one of those ideas, I suppose. But everything, as always, is up in the air. But yeah, closed systems can be designed. I don't have a problem talking about them. Closed systems, open systems, dynamic systems, blah blah blah. There's all sorts, But yeah, you can make a system closed. I think we've got some quite interesting ones. But the trick is, can you always look at the thing as being part of a bigger universe, a bigger whole, if you like? That's the problem. And does it, I suppose when you're designing systems, you start off with entities that are either inside your system or outside your system. That's a very, very, very simple piece of diagramming is your entity relationship diagram. What's in the system, what's out, pretty much, and how does it interact? Okie dokie, let's get cracking, folks. I shall grab a wee smoke here. There were birds thriving on the. So just to say, our location is at a djedida, a new town, if you like, one of the abandoned new towns, and we've jumped almost a year forward. Though we're not told that just yet, but that's where we're at with this book, this chapter. Sorry. So there were birds thriving on the insect life which teemed in the damp sand beyond the broken qanats, parrots, magpies, jays. This had been a djedida. We've had that word before. It's the new towns, if you like. The last of the tells us here, the last of the new towns built on a foundation of exposed basalt. It was abandoned now. Ghanima, using the morning hours to study the area beyond the original plantings of the abandoned sietch, detected movement and saw abandoned gecko lizard. There had been a gilla woodpecker earlier, nesting in a mud wall of the djedida. That's something I wanted to look up, actually. Hang on. Gilla. What does gilla mean? Foolish. Gila monster. There we go. That's what I was thinking. It's a species of venomous lizard native to the southwestern. There's a Gila monster song. United States and the northwestern Mexican state of Sonora. It's a heavy, slow-moving reptile up to 56 centimeters long, and it's the only venomous lizard native to the United States. Okay. Those are the four bearded lizards inhabit Mexico and Guatemala. It's a sluggish in nature, so it's not generally dangerous and very rarely poses a threat to humans. Feared reputation, sometimes killed despite the species being protected by state law in Arizona. Gila, there you go. I have had an old question answered for me. The name Gila refers to the Gila River Basin in the U.S. states of Arizona and New Mexico, where the Gila monster was once plentiful. Heloderma means studded skin from the ancient Greek words helos, the head of another stud, and derma, skin. Okay, the reason why I was wondering is Judge Dredd has Gila monsters are part of the Judge Dredd universe, part of the species that live in the cursed earth. They've evolved a bit. So, banded gecko lizards, again, more of these invasive species, if you like, that have been transplanted here. A Gila woodpecker, earlier nesting in the mud walls of the djedida. This is Ghanima. She thought of it as a sietch, but it was really a collection of low walls made of stabilized mud brick surrounded by plantings to hold back the dunes. It lay within the Tanzarift, 600 kilometers south of Sahaya Ridge. Without human hands to maintain it, the sietch was beginning to melt back into the desert, its walls eroded by sandblast winds, its plants dying, its plantation area cracked by the burning sun. Yet the sand beyond the shattered qanat remained damp, attesting to the fact that the squat bulk of the wind trap still functioned. Hmm. So a little bit of the life. These are the new towns that we heard about previously, that the new Fremen were moving into, sort of almost suburbanites, if you like. I think we call it the Fremen of suburbia. But these are the new towns. So in the months since their flight from Tabar, the fugitives had sampled the protection of several such places made uninhabitable by the desert demon. Ghanima didn't believe in the desert demon, although there was no denying the visible evidence of the qanats' destruction. Occasionally they had word from the northern settlements through encounters with rebel spice hunters. A few thopters, some said no more than 6, carried out search flights seeking Stilgar, but Arrakis was large and its desert was friendly to the fugitives. Reportedly, there was a search and destroy force charged with finding Stilgar's band, but the force, which was led by the former Tabarite Buer Agarves, had other duties and often returned to Arrakis. Pardon me, need some fluids. I think there's something here somewhere, and I wrote whatever it was that Frank was writing. It's in dire need of a comma. I don't think that was it though. The rebels said there was little fighting between their men and the troops of Alia. Random depredations of the desert demon made home guard duty the first concern of Alia and the Naibs. Even the smugglers had been hit, but they were said to be scouring the desert for Stilgar, wanting the price on his head. So there is a little bit of material there. We were told previously by Alia that she would only be giving Buer Agarves men, people on foot, basically. Couldn't spare the thopters, but they've got no more than 6, we're told here, which is very few. To search an entire planet, if you like. The suggestion there that Buer Agarves other duties, returning them to Arrakis, are with the Baron stroke Alia. He's a boon companion to the Baron. Poor chap. The rebels said there was little fighting between their men and the troops of Alia. Oh, sorry, I just read that wee bit. They definitely made home guard duty the first concern of Alia and the Naibs. Even the smugglers had been hit, but they were said to be scouring the desert for Stilgar, wanting the price on his head. So we get a sort of memory of the previous day here. Stilgar had brought his band into the djedida just before dark the previous day, following the unerring moisture sense of his old Fremen nose. He'd promised they would head south for the Palmaries soon, but refused to put a date on the move. Was that a wee joke there from Frank? I thought that was quite good. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Head south for the Palmaries, but refused to put a date on the move. Although he carried a price on his head which once would have bought a planet, Stilgar seemed the happiest and most carefree of men. This is a good place for us, he'd said, pointing out that the wind trap still functioned. Our friends have left us some water. So Stilgar's troop, and he's happy. This is interesting, I think. They were a small band now, 60 people in all. The old, the sick, and the very young had been filtered south into the Palmaries, absorbed there by trusted families. Only the toughest remained, and they had many friends to the north and south. Ghanima wondered why Stilgar refused to discuss what was happening to the planet. Couldn't he see it? As qanats were shattered, Fremen pulled back to the northern and southern lines, which once had marked the extent of their holdings. This movement could only signal what must be happening to the Empire. Pardon me, one condition was the mirror of the other. Pardon me. We're going to get us a wee sense in a minute from Ghanima that she's feeling free here too. But yes, it seems that the whole planet's after Stilgar. He's out and about being a Fremen, doing Fremen things on a Fremen planet. He couldn't be happier. He's the most carefree of men. And probably with all the bureaucracy and all of that kind of stuff that he's had to put up with, he probably is enjoying this, I think. we also get a little bit of the sense of ego with Stilgar, that he's not above it. And I think the more that the price goes up, that the happier he would be here on his head. But the interesting thing is why Gallum is wondering why does Stilgar refuse to discuss what's happening to the planet? The environmental changes. Couldn't he see it? And I've actually written next to that. I wonder that myself. Why wouldn't he? Why would he refuse to discuss this kind of thing? As the qanats were shattered, Fremen pulled back to the northern and southern lines, which once had marked the extent of their holdings. The movement could only signal what must be happening to the Empire. One condition was the mirror of the other. In other words, I think what Frank's trying to tell us here, pardon me, is what's happening to the Fremen and the Stilgar's troupe, the Fremen in general on the planet, is a reflection, that this is a microcosm, if you like, of the greater macrocosm of the Empire. Out there, I'm imagining this is the great houses, the houses minor, etc., of the Farfaluche system would be pulling back, if you like. So, in other words, the Empire society is starting to pull back. I imagine that makes different planets become more insular, if you like, focusing on their own worlds, this kind of thing. Pardon me, and it probably starts to limit travel and trade, which we got a real sense in Dune Messiah that travel is particularly restricted, isn't it? It's a difficult thing unless you're on a kind of pilgrimage, Oh, let me just catch up with your comments. Chai saying Arrakis must be fractal patterns underlying the structure of the universe be finite. Must the fractal patterns must the fractal patterns underlying the structure of the universe be finite? That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, and I actually don't think so. Chaya, looking at things like Mandelbrot sets, where we get those, self-repeating patterns. That there's, I don't know if anybody's had a look at them on YouTube. There are people who, render these things to as many iterations as they can. But the sense is that they should just keep self-repeating. It's a weird thing, isn't it? We wouldn't have been able to look at Mandelbrot's, these kind of things, and discover them without computers. But can't underline the structure going to be finite? I don't know. It's interesting when you start to see mathematical patterns in nature, things like the golden ratio and Mandelbrot's and stuff like that. My cactus is a self-replicating, if you like, repeating set of patterns as it grows. Quite like flowers and things that do that as well, sunflowers and stuff like that. But, no easy questions tonight, Chai. Chai says Leto is searching to be an independent creation and a creator in his own right. Wouldn't that require a closed system? I think so, but it's also paradoxical, isn't it? To create something, the thing is that he's created himself. It's to be closed, to seal him off from human evolution. He can't. It's not possible for him because his DNA has his own human DNA, has got that connection, if you like. To, it's weird to separate yourself out from the universe. It's a difficult thing to do. I can do it in my imagination, but to me, it's like stepping outside of it and holding it in my hand. That's the way I would visualize it. But I'm not standing in anything. It's just blackness, or if you know what I mean. But it's a visualization thing that I would do. To my imagination is kind of my best strength, Hmm. But the creator, the trick with Leto, what's paradoxical about him, Chai, is that he is the creator and the creation in many ways, isn't he? And the thing that he's trying to build, possibly that the only way in the future he can be independent of, I don't think so. Leto's searching to be an independent creation. Sorry, that's not what I meant in terms of I don't think so. I don't think it's possible for him to do it. Wouldn't that really require a closed system? I think he can try. I think he can come as close as. Our epigraph, where were we? Tells us that he's farther and farther away. Where were we? Let's see. To be independent, to be removed, both twins, so the memory is measuring process. Right, a real creation is independent of its creator. He refused to reenact the evolutionary sequence, and this too takes me farther and farther from humanity. But he can never fully escape it, I think. As much as we talk about Paul refusing to give up his humanity, Leto being willing to do it, I don't think it's something that he can do in completeness, if you see what I mean. Searching, yeah. Would that require a closed system? It would, yeah. Again, I think paradox is always that thing that lingers in your mind with Frank, in relating to this stuff, and that it's all almost there is a lot of paradoxical statements to this. These novels, paradox in a funny way is what it's all about. Evolution. Atreides saying at try it. Yes, it would, so long as all internal observers see only evidence for a closed system. If universe believes it is, then so it will be so. And Atreides says he can control dependencies to control the humanity's universe, but that always requires interaction due to dependence. Yeah, there's no way truly that he can be separate from it. And the only thing that sort of pops into my head, and again, how would you put it, that they're noticeable by their absence rather than the fact that they're not, they're not really there. How would you put it? Is the no technology. And even something like that seeks to be separate and outside of the universe in terms of people searching for it and prescience and stuff like that. It's still part of the universe, so they're noticeable by their absence, aren't they? I'm truly saying he can control dependencies to control the humanity's universe, but that always requires interaction due to dependence. Yeah, and he's and I suppose what we have is a heavily dependent universe on a drug that's about to seriously disappear. It's going to be part of his predatory nature, isn't it? The God Emperor is many things, and in some ways he's a very nasty drug dealer. So they say, Chaya, infinity has something to do with our perception or experience of it. Shorelines are fractal, potentially infinite in length if we measure with a tiny yardstick. Yet we travel. Zeno's paradoxes again. Yes, indeed. Paradoxes are great. I love them. Zeno's paradoxes are great fun. I must get a copy. I used to have some books on Greek philosophers and stuff like that. I have virtually none. Just got my Plato stuff mostly. A little bit of Aristotle as well. The Achilles paradox. There we go. Now, if anyone is not too sure on what we're talking about, Zeno's paradoxes are a series of philosophical arguments presented by the ancient Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea. His dates are circa 490 to 430 BC. primarily known through the works of Plato, Aristotle, and later commentators like Simplicius of Cilicia. Zeno devised these paradoxes to support his teacher Parmenides' philosophy of monism, which posits that despite people's sensory experiences, reality is singular and unchanging. The paradoxes famously challenge the notions of plurality, the existence of many things, motion, space, and time, by suggesting they lead to logical contradictions. What have we got as famous ones? Paradox of motion. Paradox are the three of the strongest and most famous, that of the Achilles and the tortoise. The dichotomy, argument, and that of an arrow in flight are represented in detail. The dichotomy paradox, that which is in locomotion must arrive at the halfway stage before it arrives at the goal. That's as recounted by Aristotle in his Physics. Suppose Atalanta wished to walk to the end of a path. Before she can get there, she must get halfway there. Before she can get halfway there, she must get a quarter of the way there. Before traveling a quarter, she must travel 1/8. Before an eighth, 1/16, and so on. So we get that represented as a sequence of fractions, and the description requires one to complete an infinite number of tasks, which Zeno maintains is an impossibility. The Achilles and the tortoise is probably the most famous one. You can see it there. And the arrow paradox. What else have we got? Paradox of place. If everything that exists has a place, place two will have a place, and so on ad infinitum. I love things like this. There's all sorts of little interesting ones. So for a bit of fun, if anybody hasn't checked them out, I would use them with my students for teaching. Is Raymond Smullyan's logic problems. Some of them are good fun. But yeah, paradoxes are great fun. Shorelines are fractal, potentially infinite in length if we measure with a tiny yardstick, yet we travel Zeno's paradox. Teresa and Frank seem to really put the light on religious systems that danced with paradox. Yeah, I think there's ultimately something self-contradictory or paradoxical about most religions. To be honest with you, yeah, paradox in this. I think part of it's to do with the nature of prescience and eternity. But yeah, there's and we're also dealing with the paradox of the series of books about a hero who's, not quite a hero in many ways. And we've become used to that kind of thing over the years, haven't we? Light on religious systems that dance with paradox. Yes, indeed. It's as much as I would say the main theme that runs through all of the Dune series, the only thing that really runs all the way is that of evolution. But the nature of paradox is a very big part of Frank's work. Actually, somebody sent me an email there. It was Xfed asking about maybe doing a review of the White Plague. I was thinking about that. For some reason, I might be the right person to do it. Which I was thinking about some of the things that we get in the Dune series that are in those books as well. Right, let's see. What did we get up to? Gila woodpeckers, yes. Oh yeah, okay. So we were having a wee chat about the desert demon. In the months since their flight from Tamar, the fugitives had sampled the protection of several such places made uninhabitable by the desert demon. Ghanima didn't believe in the desert demon, although there was no denying the visible evidence of the qanats' destruction. Sorry, I've read it a good bit further on than that, haven't I? Bear with me a wee second. The previous day we were talking about Stilgar's ego. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's just get forward a page. Oh yeah, we were talking about one condition was the mirror of the other. So this movement could only signal what must be happening to the Empire. One condition was the mirror of the other. And that's Ghanima's opinion. I'm sure it could signal other things too. It's another little absolute, isn't it? But the suggestion is that we have a microcosm and macrocosm here. That the society of the Empire is pulling back, if you like, in the same way that the Fremen are pulling back to their old holdings, to their old lines, if you like, to the state before Muad'Dib, possibly. Ghanima ran a hand under the collar of her still suit and resealed it. Despite her worries, she felt remarkably free here. This is interesting. The inner lives no longer plagued her, although she sometimes felt their memories inserted into her consciousness. Pardon me. She knew from those memories what this desert had been once, before the work of the ecological transformation. It had been drier, for one thing. That unrepaired wind trap still functioned because it processed moist air. I had a wee question about this that I wasn't sure about. Um, just this statement here. She knew from those memories what this desert had been once, before the work of the ecological transformation. The question I've asked is, whose ecological transformation? Which one's she talking about? Is this before the beginning of the, I suppose, the Fremen's work on the ecological transformation, part of Only Eight Kinds? Is this Paul as Emperor's ecological transformation? Or is this the original planetary one that was undertaken under the Empire, all the way back that when we have the botanical testing stations and stuff like that on Arrakis, way back in the past? It's not particularly clear. And I actually wrote for, I think it's this one. I think it's the one way in the past. But I have a sense of it that it could be a more recent one. I'm not sure what you think, guys. The wind trap, the unrepaired wind trap still functioned because it processed moist air. Many creatures which once had shunned this desert ventured to live here now. Many in the band remarked how the daylight owls proliferated. Even now, Ghanima could see ant birds. They jigged and danced along the insect lines which swarmed in the damp sand at the end of the shattered qanat. Few badgers were to be seen out here, but there were kangaroo mice in uncounted numbers. During COVID, with the lockdowns and stuff, I was kind of doing, I was my dad's kind of popping down to see him and so on and so forth. There were very few people out on the roads here, and I was out on the roads. It was all a bit Mad Max, to be honest with you. It seemed like it. But one of the roads here that we have is a very bad road, and it's the second worst road for fatalities in all of Ireland. The A26, I call it the Fury Road. But it's horrific for finding dead badgers just being hit by the cars. There's no under road tunnels or anything like that, and it's farmland on either side of the road. And it's something you just see roadkill on the road here a lot. And over COVID, one of the interesting things for me was, I suppose, humans giving nature a bit of a break, but I stopped seeing the roadkill on the roads, and I actually saw the badgers out and about crossing the roads and not getting killed. Wasn't it great that they could get a bit of a breather, a bit of a break? But it's a big problem here. Well, I thought badgers, that's kind of interesting. I didn't think of the badger as a desert creature at all, mainly because we got them around here. Has anybody seen the badger? Save the badger. Badger. It's Brian May, isn't it? God, aren't badgers lovely? Distribution. Let's see. North America, Great Britain, Ireland. Most of the rest of Europe is far north is southern Scandinavia. Far east is Japan, Korea, and China. Javan ferret badger lives in Indonesia, and the Bornean ferret badger lives in Malaysia. The honey badger is found in most sub-Saharan Africa, the Arabian Desert, southern Levant, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, and India. There you go. What do I know? They get around, don't they? Yeah, there's a big thing to save the badgers over here. I don't know if anybody, Brian May from Queensland, did a song. Save the badgers. It's very good, actually. It's good fun. It's got a bit of a Flash Gordon connection to it, as Brian Blessed doing a bit of stuff with it as well. So if you haven't seen the Save the Badgers song by Brian May and all, look it up on YouTube. It's very funny. Kind of techno kind of thing. Actually, says Frank seemed to really put the light. Oh, sorry, I read that before. I'll read it again. The light on religious systems at Dunsmith paradox. Since I imagine that Ghanima can remember more than one ecological transformation. Aha! When were the species of birds introduced? Another thing that has that has more than one possible chronology. Yeah, I wrote down there, and I thought of two ecological, and then I went to three. Uh, and with what she's saying, it could be, as you said, it could be any one of them. Possible chronology, memory. Again, what's part of our epigraph. Both twins saw beyond the needs of memory as a measuring process, that is, a way of determining their distance from their human origins. Pardon me. So we've got daylight owls, we've got ant birds, we've got insects, kangaroo mice, a few badgers, but loads and loads of kangaroo mice. Lots of the Muad'Dibs in uncounted numbers. That would suggest that their natural predators have disappeared, perhaps. Superstitious fear ruled the new Fremen, and Stilgar was no better than the rest. This djedida had been given back to the desert after its qanat had been shattered a fifth time in 11 months. Right. 4 times they'd repaired the ravages of the desert demon, then they no longer had the surplus water to risk another loss. Pardon me. So we get a wee bit of a time. That's what we were talking about at the start there. 11 months have passed. There we go. Sorry. 11 months have passed. Since they've basically, at least since Stilgar and his people have gone on the run. 5th time in 11 months, 4 times they'd repaired it. So almost a year has passed. I'm going to assume with that anyway. As I said, that we can maybe consider the two twins maybe 10 years old now instead of 9. Right, they no longer have the surplus water. So time has gone by. It was the same all through the jedidas, and in many of the old sietches. 8 out of 9 new settlements abandoned. Many of the old sietch communities were more crowded than they'd ever been before, and while the desert entered this new phase, Fremen reverted to their old ways. They saw omens in everything. Were worms increasingly scarce except in Tanzarut? It was the judgment of Shai Hulud, and dead worms had been seen with nothing to say why they died. They went back to the desert dust swiftly after death. But those crumbling hulks which Fremen chanced upon filled the observers with terror. Pardon me. Stilgar's band had encountered such a hulk the previous month, and it had taken 4 days for them to shake off the feeling of evil. The thing had reeked of sour and poisonous putrefaction. Its mouldering hulk had been found sitting on top of a giant spice blow, the spice mostly ruined. So this is a little bit of interesting information. 8 out of 9 of the new settlements have been abandoned. The desert demon is attacking these things over and over again, returning even when they've been repaired to fix them. Sorry, I just sort this out. Ooh, there we go. And we have a lot of the old sietch communities even more crowded than they've ever been before. If we kind of run the figures with Stilgar's people on the run and so on, we got the sense from Dune that the population of Sietch Tabor was 20,000 people. If I remember correctly, it was twice what. Pardon you, ladies. Trying to get back down here. Twice what I think Duncan Idaho had estimated. So if you think of Tabor has basically been reduced to about 60 people here, which is interesting. An effective guerrilla band, if you like, of Fremen. But the old sietches are filling up, and we get this we're told the desert has entered this new phase. So Fremen are reverting to their old ways, and they see omens in everything. We're running with this sense of superstition with the Fremen. Were worms increasingly scarce except in Tanzarif? So is that the question to ask? Are worms becoming scarce elsewhere? Um, God, when I was writing the notes for this, I was just something on the background of the TV. I haven't seen it since I went to the cinema. I put on The Hobbit. Peter Jackson's The Hobbit, because we'll not call it J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, because it's not. I remember watching it in the cinema and I fell asleep in all three films because of the frame rate. It really messed with my eyes. But I watched the third one. I'd totally forgotten how bad they were. Um, and I just said werewolves, but there were werewolves. And The Hobbit, oh, what on earth's going on there? And it made me thought that was a wee bit of a nod towards Dune or something, possibly, you know. But I don't know. It's been a long time since I've read The Hobbit, but I don't recall werewolves being a part of it. Well, there's a lot of stuff in that film, those films that aren't a part of The Hobbit, but it made me think of it and smile. So there you go. So worms becoming increasingly scarce, except in the Tanzaruf. It's the judgment of Shai Hulud. And dead worms, and this is interesting. So we've got dead worms all over the place with nothing to say why they've died. They went back to desert dust swiftly after death, but those crumbling husks which Fremen chanced upon filled the observers with terror. So that's kind of weird that as much as we talk about smells of putrefaction and decay, etc., it seems that the worms, these half animal, half plant hybrids that have been created in a lab originally somewhere, just seem to turn to dust. Which doesn't make any sense. You know, I would expect them to decompose and have, you know, all sorts of microorganisms, etc., etc. And in many ways, we're all colony organisms, if you see what I mean. So interesting. You wouldn't see, you know, you don't find too many of these husks, of these hulks, sorry, of these dead worms about the place. They seem to just. It's a weird thing, isn't it? They turn to dust. Return to the desert, maybe. And it kind of makes you think of ashes to ashes, dust to dust a little bit, doesn't it? But it's not how we're used to animals decomposing. And the other thing I thought I'd point out is that as much as we talked about how Fremen religion, Atreides was talking about, for example, what was it you mentioned earlier? He really likes to put like religious systems that dance with the paradox of all the things that we've looked at with the Fremen and their religion. Shai Hulud is their god and their devil, if you like. It's a dualistic being that they worship. It's a chthonic deity in many ways. What else? It provides for them. It's the spice, all of that kind of stuff. It's a form of transport for them. They get their weapons from it, etc., etc. But here we get the Fremen experiencing the death of their god in many ways, which must be a kind of hard thing to take psychologically, that they have this religious reverence for Shai Hulud. As we say, we talk about paradox. It's both Shai Hulud and Shaitan, isn't it? But these worms dying for seemingly no apparent reason, and we've been told before in Dune that these things are really, really hard to kill. You know, yet suddenly, you know, and it's interesting. But the Fremen have got their superstition on. I think they were always like that, to be honest with you. Is that part of their return to form? So we have this little thing about Stilgar's band, you know, and it's taken them kind of 4 days to shake off the weirdness of it. Weirdest thing I ever saw once, and I suppose weirdest thing I ever saw once. I was driving my car when I was about 19, and I think I've been to the cinema up in Glengormley, and was heading back the country roads towards Gleno. And it was suddenly had lots and lots of really dense fog that we couldn't hardly see a thing. I had to slow the car down a hell of a bit. Holly, sorry, brought my car to a halt and just whoa, you know, turned and looked to my left, and there was a white horse sitting there. and on a fence was a black cat, and the cat jumped on the horse's back, and the two of them just sat and stared at us, and with all this fog, and it was the most surreal, bizarre, and probably quite normal thing that you would see in Northern Ireland. But the thought of it stayed with me for days. In fact, it stayed with me my whole life. Not that I associate any particular omens with it, but I thought there's an interesting thing. You don't see that every day. uh, hmm. So Ghanima turned from observing the qanat and looked back at the djedida. Directly in front of her lay a broken wall which once had protected a mush tunnel, a small garden annex. She explored the place with a firm dependence upon her own curiosity and had found a store of flat, unleavened spice bread in a stone box. Mush tunnel, as far as I can figure out, is something that's possible or probable. Pardon me. Hmm. But I'm not too sure about that one. I think it's an Ottoman Turk term from the Arabic, if you like, meaning possible or probable. Stilgar, all right. Oh yeah, so they found this bread. Stilgar had destroyed it, saying Fremen would never leave good food behind them. Ghanima had suspected he was mistaken. It's an absolute, isn't it? um, but it hadn't been worth the argument or the risk. It's quite possible somebody left it there. Fremen were changing. Once they'd moved freely across the blade, drawn by natural needs, water, spice, trade. Animal activities had been their alarm clocks, but animals moved to strange new rhythms now, while most Fremen huddled close to their old cave warrens within the shadows of the northern shield wall. That's where Frank needs. That's the paragraph I was going. Comma, please. I'll read that again if I can. But animals moved to strange new rhythms now, while most Fremen huddled close to their old cave warrens within the shadows of their northern shield wall. Oh, yep, I ran out of air both times reading that. I can be very bad at that myself, actually. If I'm writing songs and stuff, especially when I'm writing songs or poems, I forget that people have to speak them, and I forget that they have to come up for air. Mm. So, spice hunters in the Tanzarift were rare, and only Stilgar's band moved in the old ways. Now, that's quite a statement to make. That it's only them that use the old ways. The suggestion there is that they're all but gone already. She trusted, this is Ghanima again, she trusted Stilgar and his fear of Alia. Irulan reinforced his arguments now. Sorry, I'll read that again. Irulan reinforced his arguments now, reverting to odd Bene Gesserit musings. Pardon me. But on faraway Seleucia, Farad'n still lived. Someday there would have to be a reckoning. Ghanima looked up at the grey silver morning sky, questing in her mind. Where was help to be found? Where was there somewhere to listen where was there someone to listen when she revealed what she saw happening all around them? The Lady Jessica stayed on Seleucia, if the reports were to be believed, and Alia was a creature on a pedestal, involved only in being colossal, while she drifted farther and farther from reality. Gurney Halleck was nowhere to be found, although he was reported seen everywhere. The preacher had gone into hiding, his heretical rantings only a fading memory. And Stilgar. She looked across the broken wall to where Stilgar was helping repair the cistern. Stilgar revelled in his role as the will of the desert, the price upon his head growing daily. So nothing made sense anymore. Nothing. topsy-turvy world, a world in chaos, if you like, in a funny kind of way. Everything's out of order, isn't it? It's with nature. It's kind of if you look at Macbeth, that kind of idea. Fair is foul and foul is fair, if you see what I mean. The little passage where Ghanima looked up at the grey silver morning sky. Where was there someone to listen to when she revealed what she saw happening all around them? So what we've got is a list of the players in that paragraph there, with the exception of Leto II. We've got the Lady Jessica, who's on Seleucia. We have Alia, rather amusingly called a creature on a pedestal, who's involved only in being colossal. She's gotten really, really fat. And that's the way it's put there. That's kind of funny. Well, she drifted farther and farther from reality. We have a paradoxical statement about Gurney Halleck. He's nowhere to be found, yet is seen everywhere. And the preacher's gone into hiding, his heretical rantings, only a fading memory. So we have, and we've got Stilgar and his troupe, I suppose, which includes Ghanima and Irulan. So we've got the main players, I think, within that paragraph. Jessica on Seleucia, Alia getting fat, Gurney, they seek him here, they seek him there, they seek that Gurney Halleck everywhere. Preacher's got into hiding, and we've got Stilgar running around with this troupe, if you like. And he's loving it. He revelled in his role as the Will of the Desert, the price upon his head growing daily. Nothing made sense anymore, nothing. So Stilgar loves this. I think Stilgar's just glad to be back to the old ways, if you think. I don't think he has that big an ego, but there's something, probably a sense of rightness about it to him, where everything else seems wrong, you know. Cynthia says, my text has the price upon his head growing monthly. Da-da-da. I don't know, because we didn't have much of an audience in for the previous chapter, chapter 57, but the epigraph there is wrong, and I got check the Berkeley wrong in all of them. We managed to somehow put together a correct one. Let me just look that up. Something. Where are we? 21. Number 21. I've got monthly. I've written that down. That's my. Here, hang on. I've done that. I don't know why I do that. Sometimes my brain just substitutes. I think that's better. It's usually because I'm thinking of something else. Thank you very much, Sylvia. That was my mistake. I appreciate that one. Stilgar revelled in his role as the Will of the Desert, the price upon his head growing monthly. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Wee mistake. That was mine. Well, there we go. Nothing made sense anymore. Nothing. Right, that's us. Thank you very much. Stilgar loves this is what I've written there, and I put a wee heart around it. Drawn a wee heart on it. Who was this desert demon? This creature able to destroy qanats as though they were false idols to be toppled into the sand. Was it a rogue worm? Was it a third force in rebellion? Many people. Hang on, what have I done here? Oh, let me just check that. Sorry, have I done something stupid here as well? No one believed it was a worm. Was it a third force in rebellion? Many people? Question mark. Let me read that. Where are we? Was it a rogue worm? Was it a third force in rebellion? Many people. Sorry, I've got it correct. It's just the way I read it. No one believed it was a worm. The water would kill any worm venturing against a qanat. Many Fremen believed the desert demon was actually a revolutionary band bent on overthrowing Alia's Madinat, would that be better, and restoring Arrakis to its old ways. Those who believed this said it would be a good thing. Get rid of that greedy apostolic succession which did little else than uphold its own mediocrity. Get back to the true religion which Muad'Dib had espoused. Aha! The true religion. Aye, so who's the desert demon? Rogue worm? No. Third force in rebellion? A whole bunch of people? Possibly. No one believes it's a worm, we're told, because the water would kill a worm. Many Fremen believe the desert demon is a revolutionary band bent on overthrowing Alia's Madinate. I'm going to try it again. Madinate. Madinate. It's a Madi and it's a Madinate. There we go. Madinate. Apologies. And restoring Arrakis to its old way. So basically, overthrow the new thing that they got, which is not quite what they wanted, and get back to their old ways. A deeps, and again, is this a thing that's going on throughout the Imperium? People are going in retreating to their old ways, etc., etc. Excuse me a wee second, folks. I need to blow my nose before it starts running down my face. Hang on a wee second. Apologies, that's better. Oh, I'm a wee bit bunged up tonight. I'll say that. It's bunged up and running down my nose. A deep sigh shook Ghanima, and we get her thoughts here. Oh, Leto, she thought, I'm almost glad you didn't live to see these days. I'd join you myself, but I'm a knife yet unblooded. Alia and Farad'n and Alia, the old barons, her demon, and that can't be permitted. That's a pretty sad statement coming out of Ghanima, actually, that you have a 10-year-old in this quite brutal universe who'd happily. The suggestion is she'd commit suicide and join Leto in death if it wasn't for the fact that Alia and Farad'n need a good killing. Quite a sad state of affairs, isn't it? It's interesting the level of the hypnotic delusion, if you like, that Ghanem is under. Hara came out of the djedida, approaching Ghanima in a steady sand-swallowing pace. With a steady sand-swallowing pace, Hara stopped in front of Ghanima, demanded, "What do you alone out here? What do you alone out here?" I was wondering about that one. I'll maybe check that. Could you have a wee check for that, Cynthia? Is there a word missing there? It's possibly not, but it doesn't seem quite right. Oh goodness, I'm starting to hate Adobe PDF. Right, where are we? What do you? What do you alone out here is in this one as well. It's not great English, is it? I also have "What do you alone out here?" Yes, it is odd. What are you doing out here alone, or something like that? No. What do you alone out here? What do you alone? Yeah, I mean, it is. It's. I can see how you could say it. Thank you very much. It doesn't ring well, does it? It's just it's bad syntax, isn't it? Semantically absent. Could do with a few more words. So, but we get the gist of it. What are you doing out here alone? This is a strange place, Hurrah. We should leave. Stilgar wants to meet someone here. Oh, he didn't tell me that. Why should he tell you everything? Maku? Hurrah slapped the water pouch which bulged the front of Ganima's robe. Are you a grown woman to be pregnant? I've been pregnant so many times there's no counting them, Ghanima said. Don't play these adult games with me. Hurrah took a backward step at the venom in Ganima's voice. You're a band of stupids. Ghanima said, waving her hand to encompass the djedida and the activities of Stilgar and his people. I should never have come here with. I should never have come with you. Sorry, you'd be dead by now if you hadn't. Perhaps, but you don't see what's right in front of your faces. Who is it that Stilgar wants to meet here? Buer Agarves. We'll come back to that in a wee second. It's an interesting little conversation here. It's a wee bit cheeky in a couple of ways. I've made a couple of wee comments on it. Why should he tell you everything? Maku. Maku, I think, means what's up. If I'm not mistaken, like what's up. Hurrah slapped the water pouch, which bulged at the front of Ghanima's robe. Are you a grown woman to be pregnant? So I think it's a cheeky attempt at humour. I've written next to that some very Ballymoney. Ballymoney people would do that. Go up and slap a pregnant woman's belly and ask you if you're pregnant, or they go up and slap a fat man's belly and just tell you you're looking rather fat today. And they have no. This is true. It happens. They have no idea how rude they're being, how improper. Yeah. So I think Haran is trying to be light here with the water pouch. Are you a grown woman to be pregnant? It's a little bit. It's a cheeky bit of humour, but it doesn't go down well. And the result is it's a bit thrown back in her face. I've been pregnant so many times. There's no counting them. Don't play these adult child games with me. It's kind of touche to Ghanima, but there's a real chunk of venom in her voice. A band of stupids as the result of that. Haran tells you you'd be dead by now if you hadn't, perhaps, but you don't see what's right in front of your faces. Who is it that Stilgar wants to meet here? And again, it's interesting that she's not telling them, and I suppose Stilgar refuses to discuss it, but it's the nature of the world, it's the desert, everything's changing. So it's Buer Agarves, alias boon companion for want of a better term. Ghanima stared at her. He is being brought here secretly by friends from Red Chasm's sietch, Hara explained. Alia's little plaything. He is being brought here under blindfold. Does Stilgar believe that? Buer asked for the parley. He agreed to all our terms. Why wasn't I told about this? Stilgar knew you would argue against it. Argue against? This is madness. Hara scowled. Don't forget that Buer is cut. She's cut off here by Ghanima. He's family. Ghanima snapped. He's the grandson of Stilgar's cousin. I know. And the Farad'n whose blood I'll draw one day is as close a relative to me. Do you think that'll stay my knife? We've had a distrans. No one follows his party. Ghanima spoke in a low voice. Pardon me. Nothing good will come of this, Hurrah. We should leave at once. Next little bit's quite interesting. Have you read an omen? Hurrah asked. That dead worm we saw, was that? And again, she's cut off here. Stuff that into your woman, give birth to it elsewhere. Ghanima raged. I don't like this meeting nor this place. Isn't that enough? I'll tell Stilgar what you... I'll tell him myself. Ghanima strode past Hurrah, who made the sign of the worm horns at her back to ward off evil. But Stilgar only laughed at Ghanima's fears and ordered her to look for sand trout as though she were one of the children. She fled into one of the djedida's abandoned houses and crouched in a corner to nurse her anger. The emotion passed quickly. She felt the stirring of the inner lives and remembered someone saying, if we can immobilize them, things will go as we plan. What an odd thought. But she couldn't recall who'd said those words. I've written here, nobody did, because I did a search in the books. So nobody in the Dune series has said that exact set of words in quotation marks. If we can immobilize them, things will go as we plan. There's stuff to do with Paul and immobility, if you like, with the Harkonnens in Dune, but these words are not spoken by anybody in the Dune series so far. So who Ghanima is remembering saying these words. Someone, as we're told, something to do with the inner lives. Hmm. She belongs from something. Immobility. And it's Alia who's immobile. As long as she's holed up in her temple in Arrakis, being colossal, as it's put, she's going nowhere. And even the people that she's sending out, like Buer Agarves, the suggestion is that she keeps Alia keeps recalling him for the Baron's sexual needs. Basically, it's that kind of thing. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, an interesting chapter. The dead worms thing is very, very interesting, I thought. And the twins have seen this, this environmental change that's going on. This is a new environmental change that's coming with all these assaults, if you like, upon these qanats and sietches, djedidas, by the desert demon, which we know as Leto. And again, it's still interesting to see how much the idea of characters being ignorant, if you like, of what other people are up to or getting things wrong. But I thought there's been some nice writing, and there's a little bit of the. I quite like that Gurney Halleck was nowhere to be found, although he was reported seen everywhere. There is some wee bits of humour in it. And it's the I suppose again we've jumped forward in time in this chapter as well. We have a little bit of mystery, we have a little bit of intrigue here with whatever Stilgar is up to. Can he trust Buer Agarves? I don't remember, so I'm still wondering. As I said, I haven't read ahead. And we get again, Jessica's still on Seleucia, so is Farad'n. Alia and Buer basically seem to be holed up in Arrakis. Gurney's on the run. They seek him there, they seek him everywhere. He's all over the place. Stilgar's on the move with his troop. It has a little bit of a sense of chaos that we've jumped forward almost a year in the story, right at the very end of the book, oddly enough, as well. As we're going to see the sort of consequences of Leto's work here. And we're seeing, I think we're also seeing, really, this is the end of the Fremen here too, as much as we're about to see the end of a lot of things. If Stilgar and his people are the only people acting in the old ways, that's quite bad. We have to think as well that the Fremen have had a bit of a diaspora as well. They've been scattered all over the universe, especially things like the Fedaykin, to take up bureaucratic positions, etc. This kind of thing. Ooh la la. But yeah, it's an interesting little chapter. And as I said, lots and lots of stuff. We've moved forward a fair bit in the story. We are heading towards our conclusion. We've got the holy metamorphosis going on. And the little stuff about the worms and things, as I said, whenever we get to the God Emperor, things about his weaknesses and things like that, there's a lot here. I also particularly quite like the insult that Ghanima gives Hera. Stuff that into your woman, give birth to it elsewhere. Shove that up. Modern, shove that up yours, go off and have a shit somewhere. It'll be the equivalent, I suppose. It's quite rude. It's funny as well. I don't know. And it's interesting, I suppose, that the other thing is that Ghanima has kind of been put aside here a wee bit by Stilgar, deliberately not being included in the conversation. Perhaps maybe because she would be, how would we put it, a threat to his authority, perhaps, or just simply that he can't be bothered arguing with this 10-year-old girl who has all these lives within her. It's an interesting little chapter. So we've got a little jump in circumstances. We have this back and forth banter a little bit between Hera and Ghanima, which kind of informs us on what's happened and what we're about to see happen, I'm assuming. But the last little bit I thought was interesting. If we can immobilize them, things will go as we plan. Immobility and stuff like that's key to victory. If you like, mobility is key to being able to move in warfare is very, very important. If you can't, you're in trouble. you know. But the actual phrase there that she's remembering, if it's got something to do with the story, and she doesn't remember who's saying it, but if we can immobilize them, things will go as we plan. And who's them? Who are we talking about there, you know? Oh, delicious. Be here. Oh, I'm getting barked at, folks. Let me just catch up with your thoughts. Give us a wee minute, love. Let's see. Juju messages. Gets to meet here. You read wants to meet here. Ah, that could be me again. Chaya. Let me find that one out. Oh, let me just check for it. Thank you very much. Anyway. Oh, we've got a couple here. Who is it that Stilgar waits to meet here? And you read wants to meet here. Ah, that was probably me. Where were we that one? Who is it that Stilgar? I have waits. Sorry, it's my handwriting. That one's okay, Chaya. Thank you. 29. The Stilgar waits to me. Yes, I forgot. I tend to put wee circles above my eyes. It looks a bit like an M. It looked like wants. Apologies, and thank you. That was me. So who is it that Stilgar waits to meet here? Thank you, Chaya. And then one more near the end. The emotion passed quickly, though. She felt the stirring of the inner lives. You missed the word, though. Oh, dear. That's me tonight, I think. Let's see. Emotion passed quickly. Yeah, did I leave out the word though? Yes, it is there. The emotion passed quickly though. Sorry, folks. Sometimes I do trip over things and stumble a wee bit, and sometimes my handwriting defeats me quite badly because it's awful. But there we go. That is us at the end of our chapter 58. Let's just catch up with your comments there. And so there's an interesting contrast here between Stilgar feeling happy and carefree on one hand, and the unusual tension between Hera and Ghanima. Yeah, because and he's moving these people around, you know, etc., etc. And yeah, I don't know. There is something about Stilgar's attitude here it's like he's free, isn't it? As you say, happy, carefree, happy-go-lucky Stilgar. They're out to kill me, and they put a massive price on my head. I couldn't be happier. Maybe it's just he's been absolutely scunnered with all of that. But it's and whatever Stilgar's up to here. I suppose we have one woman informing another here, if you like, of it, but he's keeping Sturm. And it seems that possibly he might be doing something politically naive. It's interesting, isn't it? As I said, I don't know what I can't remember the chapters. I know what happens at the very end of the book, but I certainly can't remember Buer Agarves and what happens to him. So that'll be interesting. Our next chapter, 59. Is going to be a bigger one, 8.5 pages, according to my book. Let's see. I think it's Gurney and Leto, isn't it? That's going to be an interesting one. And then a wee short one after that. But we'll run with that one next week on the Thursday, hopefully, folks, as usual. But yes, indeed, it's an interesting little one, and it's an odd little jump, isn't it, in time? Yeah, if we can move a couple of little things I'm wondering about at the end of that, if we can, thoughts of someone, remembering someone saying if we can immobilize them, things will go as we plan. I kind of wonder who that is. She couldn't recall who'd said those words. What an odd thought. And I've written, I said no one did because I did a search. So it's an interesting thing. Who did say those words? And I wonder why. I'm curious about that. If nobody's actually said them, it is a memory, isn't it? There we go. There's Chaya saying good night all. Thanks, Doc. No worries, Chaya. Thank you very much as always. Um, I might be popping on tomorrow night, folks, to maybe start doing a wee bit of my A to Z of sci-fi. Just again, got some free nights here at the minute, so we'll maybe pop on and do something tomorrow night. But that's us for this evening. It's another little short chapter. We are so close to the end of the book. Next week on Thursday at 9 or 10, hopefully. We'll have a chapter 59 to do, 60, 61, 62, 63, and 64 to go. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be there in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to it. So I promise I'm not going to try and rush ahead with it again and try and churn out a few extra programs. We'll just keep going at the same pace. I get the sense that if we do that, we end up making mistakes anyway. It's never good to rush these things. But there you go, folks. Some food for thought, an interesting little jump in time, and we're getting to see some Ghanima's thoughts in relation to the transformation of Arrakis and the different species that have moved and reacclimatized, if you like, and shifted. And we've also seen, for example, as much as the worms are dying out, we're told that the population of the kangaroo mouse seems to have exploded, the little Muad'Dibs, which is interesting. I wonder what that's about as well. So yeah, some food for thought in this chapter. I'll be honest with you, this one's got me thinking about. I'm not too sure I have all the answers yet, but it's kind of left me a bit ponderous. But we're definitely seeing some form of can't they see this, that the whatever it is that Stilgar can't see, we kind of can't see it as well, if you like, this ecological disaster that is apparent to Ghanima and will be apparent to Leto as well. And again, our epigraph, by the way, as much as it's from the Holy Metamorphosis by Hark al-Ada, it's about both the twins. Saw beyond the needs of memory as a measuring process. This is a way of determining their distance from the human origins. It's left to Leto to do the audacious thing, however. But that epigraph is about both the twins. So there we go, folks. So goodness, come on, 25 to 12. I'm shattered. But it's been very nice having you all here and your comments and etc. and your help with the text as always, because we know these books are a real pain from a publishing point of view. So there we go, folks. So the same, thanks, Dog, and all. I will wrap up and say goodnight to you all. Thank you very much for joining me as always with the book club. We'll be back next week on Thursday with chapter 59. That's the one that begins. My copy of the book is this one at the minute that I'm working with. It's 385. It begins with the epigraph, Muad'Dib was disinherited as he spoke for the disinherited of all time. So that's our next chapter. It'll be a slightly lengthier one. Of the chapters left, I think we've got three lengthy ones. 10 for the final chapter. That's a short 8. Wait. 13. Yeah, we've got 3 lengthy chapters coming up out of the 5. I think, is it 5 or 6? 5 that we've got left, and a couple of short ones. So we'll take our time with them anyway, and we'll push on towards our final conclusion before we can get ready to go with God Emperor of Dune. I'm enormously long-winded. I will cut it there, and we'll just say goodnight, folks. Look after yourselves no matter where you are. Be safe, and I'll see you all real soon. And thank you very much as always. Take it easy. SYMP, I give you this much greeting. Good night, folks. Take care. Bye bye.